New owner at Olympique Lyon is Colombian tycoon Carlos Paredes, a billionaire who made his money through his export business, although the actual nature of his business is unknown. Lyon fans are excited at the prospect of having enough money to not only rival PSG in their millions, but enough to overtake them. And the new owner wasted no time at all in putting his hand in his pocket to ingratiate himself with the Lyon faithful. In his first summer in charge, they spent big, totaling £347 million. I think someone needs to explain financial fair play to Carlos. The incoming signings were Heung-min Son for $60 million, Leon Goretzka for $40 million, Andreas Christensen for $28 million, Nathan Ake for $46 million, Dusan Vlahovic for $76 million, Benjamin Pavard for $55 million, and Boubacar Kamara for $42 million. The new signings hit the ground running and created a great foundation to springboard on from, pushing PSG all the way. However, just falling short, but finishing in an admirable second place in the league. And more new signings were only going to strengthen, and PSG were really taking notice. Breaking news just in, Colombian business tycoon Carlos Paredes has been arrested for drug smuggling. He has had his private jet impounded, which has contained copious amounts of cocaine, leaving Olympique Lyon in a hell of a lot of trouble. More on this story as it develops. With the impending court case of Carlos Paredes, his assets being seized, Lyon are left in real limbo. With no billionaire financing them, they are plunged into £500 million of debt. The only way to balance the books is to sell some of the big names at the club. But this will come at a cost on the pitch because replacing the players is not an option right now, as Lyon are placed under a transfer embargo. Dusan Vlahovic left for Real Madrid, Boubacar Kamara to Inter Milan, Benjamin Pavard to Newcastle, Nathan Ake and wonderkid youth prospect Murad Bukhari went to Aston Villa, Andreas Christensen to Napoli, and Leon Goretzka over to Galatasaray. The exodus somewhat balanced the books with some loans as well, but with the best talent leaving, their decline started. After the second place finish under Paredes, Lyon finished then 10th, 14th, before succumbing to relegation, finishing bottom of the table in the 26-27 season. Then, in Ligue 2, 15th place, but the following season the ship was somewhat steadied, which was a huge sense of relief for the despairing Lyon faithful, as they finished mid-table, 8th. Following the arrest and seizure of assets of Colombian business tycoon Carlos Paredes, Lyon are under a transfer embargo. Their manager has left. There is a new owner, Peter Cheese, aka Pierre Fromage, and he's hired Jayhuahua to be the new manager of Olympique Lyon. Completely out of the blue, untested, untried, no reputation other than being a subpar football manager YouTuber, Jayhuahua is now in charge of Olympique Lyon. So here I am, the new manager of Olympique Lyon. Let me tell you, it's going to be one hell of a task. So with no transfer budget and massive club debt that probably won't change anytime soon, it's time to assess the current squad and delve down into the youth academy. And whilst there are some obvious gaps and weaknesses in the squad, there are some positives and some players that are exciting prospects that we can build around. Christian Ribière and Bastien Gerrard are two wonderkid wingers/strikers, and they are clearly our best players in the squad. They are the stars of the show, they're far too good for us and are already attracting interest. And they both want to leave. Hopefully I can convince them to stay this season and help us win promotion, and they may have to let them go next season. Elsewhere in the squad, we have the Valet twins at the back, Xavier and Johan. Decent enough for Ligue 2 with plenty of potential. These two could be big names for us going forward. From the youth academy, we're looking to promote central midfield trio Nafiu Nunanyon, Michael Langlois and Frank Ekwala, who are a little shy in ability for the first team, but they're the best option we have, so it's time to put our trust in the youth. And it didn't take long for it to start. Bastien Gerrard hands in a transfer request and the offers start rolling in. He might not be happy and I will let him go, but next season, hopefully promotion can hike up his value. But he is one of our better players, and to potentially get promoted, we need to keep our best players. Ribière was next to the door and it was much of the same. This job might be much harder than I first thought. And now the chairman is accepting offers lower than their market value. 22 million is the value, and the board are accepting 16 million. Luckily, Atletico Madrid came in with a more sizable offer, and off he went for a potential 29 million, which we get 4.3 million of. With 21 million of the fee up front, 4.3 just isn't enough, especially when losing our best player, so we had a conversation with the owner. A long phone call ensued between myself and the owner. We made a deal that the signings made from any money given will be under 20 years old, with high potential and a decent chance of resale value and a return on the investment. After a long back and forth, the chairman agrees and has given us a further 10 million from the sale. So with nearly 15 million, it was time to go wonderkid hunting, and we started our search in Japan, signing Ryo Wakamatsu for a cool £5 million. Next, we splashed the cash on domineering Serbian centre-back Matija Dragojevic. At 6'6", he is going to be an absolute presence in our back four and will provide cover for the Valle twins. Brazilian left-back Leonardo Pereira was up next for 5.75 million. With a few other players leaving and youth prospects coming up, we were still a striker short in terms of cover. Unfortunately, we had absolutely no money left, so we opted for 16-year-old prospect Alpha Bar for £500,000. A gamble and not quite ready for the first team, but it's all we can do. But the youth were repaying our faith, with Jean-Marc Pages breaking the record to become our youngest ever goal scorer. After a reasonably good start, winning all 5 of our games throughout August, we found ourselves top of the league. However, unfortunately, our form was indeed temporary, as we didn't get a win throughout the whole of September, grabbing 2 draws before succumbing to our first defeat. It pains me to say, but the Brest team won. And despite the indifferent form, our youngsters were attracting interest, and Leicester City made a £10 million bid for Bastien Gerrard. He's causing aggro, so we had to let him go. Things, however, took a positive turn as Leicester agreed he could stay for the rest of the season on loan. Maybe his goals will fire us to promotion. And once again, the board are interfering, with Everton coming in for Xavier Valle. One of the twins is on the verge of leaving, 13.75 million. Hopefully we can reinvest in January to prevent our promotion charge being derailed. And Driss Fekir has attracted interest of Brighton. He's demanding to leave, and the bid is very instalment heavy. That's 2 centre-backs we're losing in January and not enough money to replace with any form of adequate quality. Looks like we need to look at the youth team again and see who is showing some promise and who might benefit and kick on with some game time. And Idrissa Fofana might just be the player. We're then utilising the rest of our entire budget on Alexandru Pasare, Romanian youngster who looks like he could fit the mould and to be a potential wonder kid, and the prospect of incredible growth. Leicester are back again, this time poaching Ousmane Kone, but they also tried to swoop in for Driss Fekir at the last minute. Deadline day came and we were offered Alessandro Petroni by his agent, a backup left back, for 1.3 million. Looks to have good potential, so hopefully, at worst, he can leave for a profit. Whilst it's with a heavy heart to see some of our young superstars leave already, the money coming in is actually balancing the books, and it's going to go some way to repairing the damage done years ago from Coke Baron owner Carlos Paredes. Although there is still heavy debts to contend with, but we're on the right path. Now to push on in the second half of the season, put behind us our inconsistent form and make a charge for promotion to get back to Ligue 1, where we belong. And our form started to pick up, winning key games throughout February and March, but despite the victories, it feels bittersweet because it's abundantly clear we're so reliant on Gerrard's goals, so without him next season, we're going to seriously lack firepower, whether we get promoted or not. But one thing to be excited about is our youth intake. We have some good prospects coming through, so hopefully they can be of use to us next season. And speaking of promotion, it's certainly on the cards as we pick up wins and teams above us drop points. And with 3 games left, just 2 points separate the top 3. And up next, it's top of the table, Sochaux. And it was 3 goals in the last 10 minutes to turn a 1-0 defeat into a 3-1 win. Gerrard and Barr with the goals, snatching victory from the jaws of defeat. Next was 4th place Caen, and it started in a similar fashion, going 1-0 down. Are the youngsters bottling it? Not today it seems, as Alpha Bar finished to equalise in the 82nd minute after Johan Valle's burst forward. And again, it was a late show as Alpha Bar bagged again in the 95th minute this time, making it 2-1, and we head into the final day, top of the table. It was the final game of the season and we started strong with Pereira firing in a rocket inside 5 minutes. We left it late to seal things off with 2 late goals to make it a comfortable 3-0 win. We're promoted as champions and we're given a generous transfer budget of £9 million. If we don't get relegated, it's going to be a miracle. We attempted to delve into the transfer market, but all of our targets weren't interested in joining. Then Newcastle came sniffing around and dropped £30 million on Japanese sensation Ryo Wakamatsu. The board gave us £11 million of that £25 million profit, so now we've got £20 million to spend. Still not a lot to avoid relegation, but it offers a lot more in our Wonderkid bargain hunting. And bargain hunting is what we did, signing Dominic Lowe from Stoke for £1.4 million. We then spent a quarter of our transfer budget replacing Bastian Gerrard, Lorenzo Granelli, the Italian striker from AC Milan. He never got his chance in Italy, so he's come here to kickstart his career. Argentine playmaker Santiago Barbieri came in for £5.5 million, a real bargain find who could be the focal point in our team. And a player dubbed the next Luka Modric, Ivan Bajic, came in for £9.5 million. The only similarity to Modric, though, feels the fact he's Croatian, although he does look excellent. We also signed 16-year-old Steven Lascelles, a model citizen centre-back from French national side Guingamp. We can't afford too many outlandish signings, so gambling on youngsters and hoping our scouts have done their job is the best we can do. Hello? Oh, yeah, hiya. Yep, preparation's going well, thank you. What do you mean don't pick Johan Valet? Where is he? Chelsea? What you fucking doing there? What do you mean you sold him? How much? 36 million. How much do I get of that to reinvest? Hello? Hello? Gone. We started our season with confidence, with Barbieri scoring in a 2-0 win in our second game, but the wheels quickly fell off, losing 6 on the spin, leaving us in the relegation zone after 8 games. Moments define seasons, and when Koulibaly brilliantly saved a penalty and Granelli then bagged a winner in a 1-0 win, things felt like they were turning a corner. Not only did our form start to improve, we found ourselves on the right end of some classics, notably the 4-3 win against Strasbourg. Not only were we down to 10 men and found ourselves 3-2 down in the 83rd minute, but we equalised and went on to get a 94th minute winner, snatching a much needed 3 points. More draws and victories followed, another notable classic, a 3-3 draw against PSG. 2-0 down early in the second half, some tactical changes along with some substitutions, and the tide turned in our favour, with us going 3-2 up with just 5 minutes left. Sadly, we couldn't hold on, and the Parisians rescued a point. And with those results throughout November and December, we find ourselves in the dizzy heights of 13th. With avoiding relegation firmly in our hands, can we hold on to our young stars in January, or will we find ourselves backed into a corner by the might of European financial powerhouses? It wasn't even the powerhouses, it was Schalke who came knocking for our star goalkeeper Thierry Koulibaly, £20.5 million, and he was on a flight to Germany their very next day. Young starlet from last season's youth intake Freddie Prouveau donned the gloves for the rest of the season. However, it wasn't the best start as a first team regular for him, but it wasn't just defensively where we were struggling. The goals dried up as well, suffering defeat after a defeat. The best we managed was a few draws. The quick decline down the table started as the teams below us picked up points. And by March, we found ourselves in the relegation playoff place. And as we journeyed through March, we managed a few draws, 1-1, a couple of 0-0s. We were lacking firepower and missing Bastian Gerrard's goals. The lack of wins sees us officially in the drop zone, and we needed something to change. And things started in the familiar fashion against Strasbourg as we fell behind early, but we weren't going down without a fight. We fought back, and a moment of magic from Alexandru Pasare, scoring a screamer. We continued in the ascendancy, and despite Strasbourg making a good scrap of it, we came out the victors, winning 5-3. This elevated us above Strasbourg, and we are now in the relegation playoff zone. Can we survive? We have 5 games left to do it. Things felt positive as we grabbed a 90th minute equaliser against Toulouse. We sadly lost to PSG, but also grabbed a 1-1 with Reims. With 1 game left, we find ourselves in the relegation playoff place, but Havre, the team below us, have a game in hand. And unfortunately, they won, leapfrogging us, leaving us in the drop zone. And with a tough trip to Nantes awaiting, they were looking to secure Europa League qualification. It's not looking great. But despite the odds being stacked against us, we took an early lead inside 3 minutes. Was it time to believe? Nantes equalised, and you could hear hearts break around Lyon. Bearing in mind we need Monaco to beat Havre as well. Anything else, we're down, even if we win. Nantes being level didn't last long, however, as we restored our lead, 2-1, and as it stands, we're safe. But news came in from around the grounds, and Havre have held Monaco to a 1-1 draw, and despite our best efforts, we've been relegated. And we got it on good authority that despite Olympique Lyon's relegation, Jayhuahua's job as the manager is completely safe. The owner is backing him, and from our sources on the ground, they're telling us that he believes that he is the man to get them back. He feels they got promoted too soon, they had very little to work with. So in the end, relegation was borderline inevitable. And the fact that they took it to the final day and nearly got themselves safe, in the words of Pierre Fromage, was almost a miracle. He believes Jayhuahua will take Lyon back to Ligue 1 and on to bigger and better things in the coming seasons. We've been given £38 million to strengthen and been promised 100% of all transfer revenue for any player we might lose due to being relegated. Now, with the backing of the owner and some money to spend, it was time to try and convince certain players to stay despite the interest circling in them. And I felt it went well, heading off into the summer somewhat confident we could keep most of the team. Then the European bigwigs started meeting our relegation release clauses left, right and centre. Our rapid-fire transfer window was Matija Dragojevic left for Arsenal for 28.5 million, Alexandru Pasare to Dortmund for 18, Mohamed Al-Salati to Spurs for 31 million, Nafiu Nunanyon left for United for 15 million, Lorenzo Granella to Udinese for 9, Dominic Lowe to Crystal Palace for 5.75 million. So there was lots out and lots to replace. The next batch of wonder kids were Dennis Kriekels from PSV for 7 million, a release clause working in our favour this time, a hard-working defensive midfielder to keep us solid in our push for promotion. Of course, you can't get promoted without goals, so we headed for the Brazilian sensation who had plenty of interest from bigger clubs, but he chose us, Artezinho, who cost us £14 million and is our highest paid player by some distance. However, he looks to be worth every penny. We took a gamble on pacey youngster Jean-Yves Santiago from Bordeaux for 6.5 million. At 17, he has plenty of time to fulfill his potential, and with us losing a lot of first-team regulars, he'll be sure to get plenty of game time to help nurture his talent. We started splashing some serious cash given many players were departing. We spent £18 million on a right-back, Paul Rijmakers from Feyenoord. 18, a full-back who can play both sides, and has a reasonable weaker foot. A versatile youngster who feels worth the price tag. We then went bigger, literally bigger, with Christian Smarsh from Hertha Berlin. £21 million, a real gamble because he looks quite average right now, but he's a model citizen, 6'4", a colossus at the back is exactly what we need to shore up our defence. And despite the huge exodus of many of our best players, the new gang hit the ground running, scoring for fun, playing teams off the park, and making a real statement here in Ligue 2. Artezinho was on fire early doors, scoring left, right and centre as we accumulated win after win after win. 8 games in, he was top of the scoring charts and we were top of the league. The good form continued as we approached Christmas, and even some of the old faithful were on fire as well, with Alpha Bar scoring our goal of the season in November. At Christmas, we were 8 points clear, having lost only once all season, and the second half of the season was much of the same. Sharing around the goals, players playing brilliantly, and no team looked like they were on our level. The one defeat earlier in the season was all we suffered, as we secured promotion and the League 2 title, winning the league by 27 points. Our number 10, Barbieri, was player of the season, a man we kept hold of despite relegation, and he was joint second in the scoring charts on 20, level with teammate and superstar signing Artezinho. We were promoted by mid-March and our budgets were revealed. The transfer kitty of 61 million and almost double the wage budget. The new owner was certainly backing us to stay up next season. Now it's time to build on this in Ligue 1. The players who are here are considerably better and some of our top talent has the vultures circling. Some are committed to staying given their guaranteed playing time, but unfortunately Artezinho is homesick and he wants to leave to head back to Brazil. After submitting a transfer request, Barcelona came in for him, which the board automatically accepted. And then he left. Barcelona. That famous Brazilian city. So we must strengthen up front, as he was our joint top scorer last season, and we will need goals if we are going to survive. So we made a huge gamble on 18-year-old Rennes prospect Florian Reynaud. He was unhappy, wanting more playing time, and this is something we can certainly offer. He demanded a hefty contract, star player status, not to mention the £36 million price tag. Some of our central midfielders weren't progressing as we initially hoped, so to add some depth we met the £26 million release clause of Anderlecht's Sebastiano Rutter. Franco Koala attracted interest from Norwich, and he is one who hasn't really kicked on and has kind of fallen down the pecking order, so we decided to accept Norwich's bid and he left. Another departure arrived in the form of Idrissa Fofana. Sadly, despite having plenty of talent, he was still throwing his toys at the pram after being removed as vice-captain. Yes, you heard that right, vice-captain. So to be frank, I'm sick of his misery bringing down the mood of the place. So when Eintracht Frankfurt put a bid in, we duly accepted, and off to Germany he went. Of course, we needed to replace him at centre-back, so 19-year-old Dutch defender Bert Mol fit the bill, 17.5 million, and he was ours. Anthony Jourdan left for just over $1 million because again he hadn't turned into the player we hoped, and at 22 he likely never would. So we cut our losses and said our goodbyes. To add some depth in defensive midfield, we approached young Swedish sensation Martin Kristoffersson Brorsson, who we acquired for just £400,000 compensation due to his youth contract at AIK. He has good potential, and hopefully, given his name, we could be quids in if people get that on the back of the shirt, because we charge by the letter. We delved into the French lower leagues and found Emiliano Bentepi, spending just £1.2 million on the young centre-back, and then headed over to Belgium for a backup right-back, spending £5.5 million on Dennis Martin. Of course, between the sticks is somewhere you always want to improve. Making crucial saves can earn you vital points. So £7 million on Lars Jørgen Windegaard was an excellent piece of business from my perspective. 6'6", 20 years old, bags of potential, and already showing real quality. This signing was another no-brainer. We also strengthened on the wing with the acquisition of Gaëtan Legrand from Auxerre for £2.8 million. And that was the end of the transfer business, both ins and outs. In a cagey opening day fixture where chances were few and far between for both sides, the fixture was destined for a 0-0 draw. Not a bad result against one of the bigger teams, especially away. However, as the board went up for stoppage time to show 3 minutes, we were in possession. Ramos was released down the right and he was cynically brought down. Even Bajic stepped over the free kick. The defenders came up, ready for the devilish ball to be whipped in. Bajic glanced towards the box before whipping in a well-placed shot that cannoned off the post and flew into the back of the net. 1-0 to Lyon in the 92nd minute, and the travelling fans were elated. A fantastic opening day win. The rest of the month, though, was less spectacular, with us failing to pick up another win. However, we only lost once and picked up 3 draws, 2 of which we came from behind to salvage a point, and after 5 games we find ourselves in the dizzy heights of 8th, far away from relegation. And things only got better as we entered September, winning 3 from 3 with the new signings scoring goals, and we were really starting to click as a team. And those 3 wins on the bounce see us in 5th. Could we carry on this magnificent form? Well, October continued in the same fashion with back-to-back 1-0 wins, making it 5 wins in a row before we travelled to the mighty PSG, where we came unstuck. Over the next 2 months, we continued our reasonably good form with more wins than losses, and we remained in 5th going into the winter break. With relegation not even in the back of our minds now, the focus is continuing on and potentially getting into Europe. However, January rolled round and our bubble began to burst. Firstly, Francisco Nunez refusing to sign a new deal, opting to leave on a free at the end of the season to go to RB Leipzig, and I wish that was the worst of the news I could bring you. Mikel Langlois and Santiago Barbieri are 2 central attacking midfielders who are rivals for position, found themselves rivals of a more personal nature. Santiago got caught sleeping with Mikel's girlfriend, and it all got very Coronation Street here at Lyon. As we returned from Christmas, I was met by Mikel, who advised he wants to leave, get away and have a fresh start. And who am I to stand in the way of this request? Barcelona are interested in him, and they are great at helping people get over their personal issues. Who remembers them managing to help Brazilian-born Artesinho cure his homesickness? Yeah, exactly. I'm sure they can mend a broken heart. Unfortunately, this means we are light in the central attacking midfield role, but also Santiago is incredibly unpopular in the dressing room. He's been shunned by the squad, becoming an outsider, a lone wolf, which is harming the squad dynamics. In spite of his talent, for the good of the club, it's time for Santiago to leave as well, before we end up with a potential squad exodus. With the very public nature of this drama, the vultures circled and Barbieri chose to leave for Newcastle. for £50 million. We aren't left with long to replace both, however, sadly, some of our potential targets are just not interested or are opting to go elsewhere. In the end, we're bringing up a youth prospect as well as taking a gamble on another youth prospect from Rotherham. Carnell Hibbard, a bit of a deadline day panic buy for £8 million. Let's hope it pays off and we can put this drama behind us and carry on with our push up the league. And the drama didn't end there. Due to his impending divorce, our owner, Peter Cheese, aka Pierre Fromage, is looking to sell the club, and the club is plunged into a transfer embargo. The South Korean investor Dong Min Park is rumoured to be interested in the takeover. Back to matters on the pitch, and the team dynamics continue to thrive post the exit of our two rival cams. With the youth making a name for themselves, we continue our push at the league, picking up plenty of wins, and even panic buy Carnell Hibbard has performed well, popping up with a few goals. We're doing so well, after 27 games, we find ourselves in the Champions League places. And the wins and good results continued, so much so that as we finish the season, we do find ourselves locking in 4th place and that vital final Champions League qualification place. We look strong and can go from strength to strength. However, we look up the table to see our rivals and notice PSG won the league, going entirely unbeaten. Eventually toppling PSG will be a very tall task. But let's rewind for a second, because the league wasn't the only story this season. We found ourselves on a magnificent cup run, navigating the earlier rounds with ease before swiftly dispatching of Nice, demolishing Marseille 6-1 in the quarter-final, and then disposing of Nantes 4-1 in the semi-final. Whilst the South Korean takeover has not materialised, the future remains uncertain, so we're hopeful we can deliver the cup, not only for the fans, but what will be the final act for Pierre as the owner of his beloved Lyon. But that won't be an easy task, with the final being against invincible champions PSG. With a tense and cagey affair, a cross came in the 80th minute from Mbappe, and the referee pointed to the spot in what might be the softest penalty in French Cup history. Mbappe duly dispatched, and that's how it ended, 1-0. And our fairy tale bubble burst. Overall though, a very successful season, one we can certainly build on, although building might be slower than we hoped, as takeover talks and rumours are still circulating and we find ourselves still under a transfer embargo. As we entered the summer and set to embark on our European adventure, we are still under a transfer embargo. The only silver lining is our youth squad. It's absolutely thriving with talent. Youngsters are seeing the opportunities being given here at Lyon, and we're the go-to place for up-and-coming talent. Minimum fee release clauses became our worst enemy once again, as even Bayic's £82 million release clause was met by Chelsea, and he duly departed. I didn't think that would be a problem when we signed him for £9.25 million 3 years ago. But now we're losing a world-class player for a decent sum of money, mind you, but we can't replace him. More outs also came as Camille Ricard left for AC Milan for £44 million and then backup goalkeeper Freddie Prouveau to Newcastle for £35 million. With all the outs, we have £215 million to spend, but no opportunity as the transfer embargo is still active, and as the days pass, the deadline approaches, and until matters off the pitch are resolved, all we can do is focus on matters on the pitch. And the first order of business was the Champions League qualification phase, with the home leg against Rangers getting off to a flyer as Sebastiano Ruta scored inside 2 minutes. In a 10-goal thriller, we were the dominant side, scoring fluid team goals as we ran out 7-3 winners, setting us up perfectly for the second leg, which we won 3-2, meaning the aggregate scoreline finished 10-5. Despite the free-flowing football and goal fest in the Champions League qualifiers, things were far more muted in the league, scraping by the odd goal, and when the floodgates started to open, so did our defence, as we lost a late winner in a 4-3 classic against Havre AC. In and amongst these cagey league games, we had the final Champions League qualifying stage against Lask. Winning the home tie 7-0, we actually lost the away leg 2-1, but we'd done more than enough in the first leg to secure our path to the Champions League. As we entered September, still under transfer embargo, we couldn't spend a penny of our transfer budget, and we have to go into the season with Europe and a slightly smaller squad. This could be tricky, and the indifferent start to the league campaign already has us down in 5th. We started to find our form, however, and began to look like the Lyon of last season as we started picking up wins and scoring more goals. Sitting fourth in the table and playing well, we were also taking to Champions League football, sitting mid-table halfway through the league phase with our standout performance, a 3-1 victory against Real Madrid. We remained in fourth as January rolled round, but the transfer embargo is still bloody there. However, we're focusing on matters on the pitch, and on the pitch, we're thriving, consistently performing in the league, cementing ourselves within the top four, but also making a great shake of our Champions League run, qualifying for the knockout stages with great victories in our final two games against Man City and RB Leipzig. Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end, and it did so against Valencia. Firstly, Sebastiano Ruta got a second yellow card, meaning we were down to 10 men. Then Valencia hit us with a 1-2 punch, and that was that. We couldn't overturn the deficit, and the youth of Lyon came unstuck, but we gave a very good account of ourselves. And despite the humbling defeat to PSG in February, this was the last defeat of the season for us, as we went from strength to strength, picking up points and moving through the gears. The youngsters improving, performing and scoring plenty of goals. Ultimately, this left us finishing the season in third. One step closer to toppling PSG, who no longer look invincible. In fact, not invincible at all, as they succumbed to the pressure of expectation and they were overthrown by Nice, who were the surprising league champions. So, third, an improvement on last season, despite losing some key players and being unable to replace. But next season is looking positive, as our transfer embargo has been lifted. But we're not quite done just yet, because there was unfinished business in the French Cup after losing to a soft penalty to PSG last year in the final. We started our campaign in blistering fashion, demolishing Lens 7-1, and it didn't end there. Despite being pegged back twice against Strasbourg, one of our original prospects, Alpha Bar, popped up as the hero with the winner in a dramatic 3-2 victory. The semi-final against Troyes was much more comfortable as we ran out 4-1 winners, and once again, we are back in the final for the second season in a row. Is this redemption, or will it be more heartbreak? In a cagey start, the first quarter of an hour was largely uneventful until Jeremy Tonardre was brought down in the box, giving us the opportunity to take the lead. Starman Florian Reynaud stepped up, but Guillaume Restes was equal to the challenge, saving magnificently. Could this be a sign of things to come? On the half-hour mark, Reynaud was running at the defence and Rodrigo lunged in two-footed. His game was over. Rennes were down to 10 men, and despite Rennes holding firm until the second half, the deadlock was finally broken by Pedro Ramos. A second goal followed, and Florian Reynaud got his goal, redeeming his earlier penalty miss, and the French Cup was coming to Lyon. A huge step in the rebuild of the club, and with transfers available again in the summer, £174 million to spend, and our wage budget increased by £2.5 million, this could be a huge summer in store for Lyon. And now the transfer embargo is lifted and we can strengthen to challenge PSG. We entered into the transfer market, but there were exits as well. Long-standing cult hero left-back Leonardo Pereira left for Barcelona for £86 million, leaving a gaping hole in our defence. We spent big on his replacement, and where better to look than his international competition, Brazilian left-back Paulo, who cost a whopping £80 million from Aston Villa. At centre-back, we splashed the cash for Italian sensation Matteo Zanzini, who cost us £61 million. That's £141 million spent so far, for whoever's keeping track. Moses Akire, the prodigal son, returned as a holding midfielder to replace last season's loss of Ivan Bajic. He set us back £19 million from AC Milan, a bit of a steal because he was transfer listed by request after being refused a new contract. Turned out the grass wasn't greener in Italy, hey Moses, having left in 2031 for AC Milan for a measly £650,000 compensation. Welcome home. And finally, we snaffled central attacking midfielder Baton Ehen from Borussia Mönchengladbach for his £79 million release clause, which has been a position we've struggled in all last season. And he looks absolutely phenomenal. At 23, he's the ready-made article, and boy is he. £79 million feels like a bargain for him. That's £239 million for the window, recouping 86, meaning we spent a net £153 million in strengthening our already strong, evolving youngsters. And let's check in on the progress of some of our key names before we start the season. Christian Smarsh, now 21, 6'4", and looking like a dominating world-class centre-back, improving in key areas, a rock at the back, who we've certainly built our defence around. Sticking in defence and right back, Paul Ragemakers. Quick, hard-working, and an engine for days. Good at crossing, dribbling, he has all the right attributes for my ideal fullback. Moving up the pitch is Jean-Yves Santiago, who arrived from Bordeaux in our season in Ligue 2. Well, he's become a bit of a physical monster, and he's been scoring plenty as well. Last season, scoring 26 in 52 in all competitions. And last but certainly not least, our number 9, Mr. Reliable, Florian Reynaud, who has really kicked on in the last couple of years. Great physically, very composed, terrific off the ball, and he isn't too bad at finishing either. Scoring over 30 goals in all competitions last season. Maybe a little light in terms of league goals, but if he gets firing, you never know. The league title could be ours. And the season started in positive fashion with a 1-0 win against Nice in the Trophée des Champions. And our new signings hit the ground running, notably Bata and Aaron, who scored and got 2 assists in a player of the match performance on the opening day of the season. And the good form continued as we were flying, winning and free scoring in the opening month, sitting pretty at the top of the table. But up next, it was PSG. And despite going ahead twice, we found ourselves on the wrong end of a 3-2 scoreline. However, this minor setback didn't knock our confidence as we marched through September and October, scoring goals for fun, everyone chipping in, and we were starting to look like the real deal. Top of the table, albeit on goal difference, with Nice undefeated and PSG also undefeated 2 points further back, it's shaping up to be a very close season. And it seems PSG have our number, as we lost 3-2 to them again, this time in the Champions League group phase. But despite this slip-up, we were performing well, absolutely obliterating teams. We feel like we aren't just making up the numbers this season, we generally feel like contenders given how we're dismantling teams, and making real statements along the way. We're picking up wins in the league, and it wasn't just the performances, but the manner of victories, even picking up points when we didn't play our best, or when things seemed to be going against us. A notable moment to emphasise this in our season came in the game against QRM, twice going ahead, and we entered the final 10 minutes winning 2-1. A penalty to secure things, but Gaëtan Legrand blazed it over. Then with 2 minutes to go, QRM equalised, and this felt like a real blow, but our never say die attitude was ever present, and in the 92nd minute we popped up with a winner, taking the 3 points. The winter break came and went with us sat atop of the table, PSG breathing heavily down our necks, still undefeated, and one slip up is all it will take, so we need to remain consistent if we want a chance at this league title. Given our first half of the season performances, we are starting to believe. It was a tough start to the defence of our French Cup as we faced Nice, scraping by on penalties before beating Monaco 1-0 in a very close game. We qualified from the Champions League with wins against Inter Milan and Atletico Madrid, meaning we bypassed the knockout playoff round and head straight for the round of 16. We're getting the job done in the League 2, remaining a point clear of PSG with them up next. And it was the same old story with PSG as they came out on top 1-0. And with that, PSG leapfrog us at the top of the table. And over the next 2 months, we tried to stay within touching distance of PSG, but we dropped points against Nantes in a 0-0 draw, and then sloppily gave a 1-0 lead away against Rennes, succumbing to a 2-1 defeat. Meanwhile, PSG were flying, picking up win after win after win, and by the end of March, they were still undefeated, and we were now 5 points off the pace. And it just so happens we drew PSG in the Champions League. Could we exact any form of revenge? Well, the first leg in Paris, we were handily beaten, as PSG ran out 2-0 winners. In the return fixture, we knew we had a mountain to climb, and we were helped on our way with some abysmal defending from PSG, as Florian Reynaud accepted the gift and got us back into the match. Full time approached, 4 minutes being added on, and we had one final roll of the dice. We switched the play from left to right. Paul Ragemakers was in space. He burst forward and drilled a devilishly low cross into the box, and Alpha Bar scores, making it 2-2. And we are heading to extra time. Surely this is our time. Well, sadly no. Estevao curled in a lovely finish to make it 3-2 on aggregate, and that's how it finished. PSG break our hearts once more. With no Champions League football to contend with, we could now focus on the league and defending our French Cup. And we really kicked on in the league, winning 8 of our last 9, our worst result being a draw. Sadly, PSG matched us every step of the way, remaining undefeated in the entire league season, winning the league by 5 points. We lost out to PSG in the league and we were knocked out of the Champions League by them, so when we beat Strasbourg 4-0 in the quarter-final of the French Cup and drew PSG in the semi-final, needless to say, we were apprehensive. But we went into the tie with confidence because despite going out of the Champions League, we did win the second leg 2-1. And this game started in exactly the same way, with PSG making a mess in their defence and Gaëtan Legrand capitalised, making it 1-0. The lead didn't last long, however, as Gavi equalised and we went into half-time all square. After a rousing team talk, we came out with a spring in our step, and the fluid passing was causing PSG plenty of problems. Santiago was played through, and he burst into the box, finishing coolly. 2-1, and that's how it stayed. A magnificent victory. It just feels a shame this was only the semi-final. The final rolled around, and we had Saint Etienne, which we have to be favourites for here. We've beaten PSG to get here, and the result never really felt in doubt as we raced into a 2-0 lead, scoring a third late in the first half, and with the last kick of the half, we actually made it 4. The second half was more subdued, but we still added a fifth to the scoreboard, and we've done it. We've won the cup for the second season in a row. We were so close yet so far this season, but not much needs to change. Our players are still developing and becoming world-class superstars in the process. If we can keep hold of everyone next season, we've got to be in with a shout to win it all. After a season essentially derailed by PSG's dominance, we were on the cusp of greatness, but toppling the gargantuan behemoth that is PSG was a different story altogether. Over the last 7 years since we took over, we've had ups, we've had downs, and we've slowly built our way back up to become one of France's elite. So how do we topple PSG? Essentially, our young squad is still improving, and we are strong all over the pitch. We don't need to go spending stupid amounts of money just to compete. Patience is key, as I firmly believe the core group of players we have, if they stay, can reach the promised land of the Ligue 1 title and even Champions League glory. However, it is with a heavy heart that one of our originals, signed in Season 1, Alpha Bar, is venturing off for pastures new. He's going to Fiorentina for £22.5 million, seeking a more consistent playing time. It's no surprise considering he has featured less and less each season, and he didn't even start a single match in the league last campaign. But naturally with that exit, we do need a backup striker, and we do have some money to spend, so where better to spend it than on pacey wonderkid sensation Cyril Sangare from Nantes, costing us a cool £50 million. And that was it for the window. 1 in, 1 out, nice and simple. And the season started against our championship rivals PSG in the Trophy de Champions, and it kind of felt like Groundhog Day as PSG ran out 1-0 winners. Despite our growth, we just keep falling short, and it really is deflating. However, the next day in training, there was a fire amongst the players, an intensity, a desire. The defeat had awakened something within them, and it felt like they weren't going to lie down and be trampled over by the mighty PSG anymore. And that intensity showed as the season began, and we didn't just win our first 5 games, we absolutely destroyed our opponents, scoring 26 goals over the 5 games and conceding just 2. We closed out August on top of the table, and things were looking up. September came and went, and the scintillating form continued. Free-flowing football and goals galore. It even bled through to our Champions League campaign, as we got off to a flyer there too, beating Ajax 7-0 and Roma 3-0. All good things must come to an end, they say, and mid-October we had the sternest of tests. PSG came to town. The memory of the Trophy de Champions was still very fresh in our minds, but we got off to a flyer. Christopherson Brawson curled in a beauty from outside the box. Playmaking sensation Baton Aaron then popped up with a goal either side of half-time before Gaëtan Legrand finished proceedings, making it 4. We didn't just beat PSG, we wiped the floor with them. And this result made everyone take notice. The hangover of that electric performance against PSG was apparent as the wheels came off somewhat as we lost 3-1 to Benfica in our very next game. But we got back on track with a couple more league wins before a Champions League classic against Bayern Munich. Coming from 2-0 down to make it 2-2, and our German player and Bayern Munich fan, Christian Smarsch, was the one to equalise in the 92nd minute. An epic encounter. Our league form maintained as we looked unstoppable, and by Christmas we were still top of the league, with a perfect record. Played 17, won 17. PSG were 9 points off the pace. It really was ours to throw away at this point. Can we go unbeaten? We also qualified for the knockout phase of the Champions League as we disposed of some of Europe's elite, rounding things off with an excellent victory, 3-2 against Manchester City. And today we bring news from Lyon in France. Notably, their captain Christian Smarsch, who he and his wife have welcomed a son into the world. Congratulations to them from everyone here at Wow Sports News. Following the birth of their son, they have expressed their desire to return to Germany. Christian Smarsh, who came to Lyon as a teenager, has come of age and become one of the world's best centre-backs. And now, given the birth of his child, him and his wife want to be close to their family. The rumours are circulating. Bayern Munich, his boyhood club, he was a fan of. He had a season ticket with his father at 8 years old. Bayern Munich are rumoured to be interested. I think this one's going to be pretty cut and dry. Christian Smarsh to Bayern Munich is almost a certainty. We tried to get a word from Jayhuahua himself, but he was unavailable. He was pissing about in a wig or something. February continued in the same sort of fashion, picking up wins in the league and progressing through the cup once again. As we reached the semi-finals after a convincing victory against Troyes, however, March rolled round and the wheels started to fall off. We went down to 9 men in a 4-2 defeat to Lens. Back-to-back league defeats interspersed with elimination from the Champions League as we lost 2-0 to AC Milan in the San Siro and drew just 1-1 in the second leg, meaning we were out in the early knockout stages once again. A feeling of deja vu is creeping in. Will we fall short once more, or can we hang on to the lead we currently have in the league? We did get back on track though as we beat PSG 2-0. What a game to have after a mini slump. Dennis Kriekels opened the scoring and Captain Fantastic Christian Smarsh made it too. Christian, we will miss you. April was back to business, going the entire month unbeaten, winning every single game. With each game that passed, we were one step closer to that league title. We even dispatched of Strasbourg 8-0 in the French Cup, making it to our 4th final in a row. 3 games remaining and we need just 1 win to mathematically secure the title, and we did it in comfortable fashion, winning all our remaining games, and the cup final in a less than convincing performance in a 1-0 win against Nice. Just 2 defeats in the league all season, 29 goals for Florian Renaud, who finished the top scorer. Gaëtan Legrand was player of the season and he got 28 assists. As a team, we scored 116 goals, only conceding 23. We have a domestic double, we've toppled PSG, but one thing remains on our list of ambitions: the Champions League. As mentioned previously, Christian Smarsh left on a free to Bayern Munich, so he needs replacing. With a gap opening up, maybe youngsters could step in, but Emiliano Bontepi has decided he also wishes to leave, opting to join Brighton at the end of his contract. This leaves 2 holes in defence we need to fill, and quickly. Welcome back to Our Sports News and the transfer roundup, and we are talking about Olympique Lyon because there are rumours, should I say, and our sources on the ground to the club and player are sort of verifying this. Xavier Valle is potentially on his way back to Lyon. The player that left many moons ago to go to Everton has not signed a new deal with Everton. It is pretty common knowledge that he will be leaving Everton at the end of the season in about 4 or 5 weeks' time. Now, there are many teams interested in Xavier Valle. He is one of the world's best defenders. Jayhuahua, of course, has just lost arguably the best defender in the world in Christian Smarsh. He needs to replace him. He's lost him on a free. Could he go and get Xavier Valle on a free? Sources close to the player say he would be very open and interested to the move. So, watch this space. We made an approach and it was clear coming home to Lyon was his preferred choice. Xavier signed on the spot and agreed to join in July. And this story just keeps on materialising. We've only just had the breaking news that Xavier Valle has confirmed his decision to return to Olympique Lyon at the end of the current season. He will be returning to play under Jayhuahua and join the vast host of superstars that are now there. When he left, he was one of the better players in the team. He is now going to be one of many. But he's not going to be alone, if the rumours are to be believed, because his brother, his twin brother, who was there at Olympique Lyon at the same time, who left for Chelsea, sold from under Jayhuahua's nose without him even knowing, is potentially on his way back. We have had conversations with the agent, Chelsea, and Lyon. Lyon are remaining tight-lipped of saying no comment. The agent of Yohan Valle has advised us that there is 1 year left on his current deal, and he is potentially open to a return to Lyon. Chelsea have advised us that if he is intending to leave next season, they would like to cash in on him now. So Olympique Lyon, the door is open. If you want to reunite the Valle twins at the heart of your defence, go and knock on Chelsea's door. So after a bit of back and forth, all parties were happy to settle on £38 million. So out of the darkness of losing Smarsh and Bontepi comes the light with the return of fan favourites, the Valet twins. Stephen Lascelles hadn't really progressed as we'd hoped, so when Napoli made an offer of £43 million, we accepted on the spot and went hunting for a squad option replacement, finding young Polish starlet Arkadiusz Sobkowski for £9 million. And it feels like we might have PSG's number. We are the team to beat, and we proved just that as we won the Trophy de Champions 2-0. We started the season in strong fashion, picking up wins. The prodigal twins, the Valets, both got on the score sheet in a demolition of Monaco, and after 6 games, we were top of the table with an exceptional goal difference. But just like the defeat in the Trophy de Champions lit a fire under us last season, it seems to have done the same to PSG this season, as they're keeping pace, scoring lots of goals. This title race could be very interesting. Over the next couple of months, we found ourselves coming up short on more than one occasion. Despite many victories and a strong Champions League start, our league form was a little bit suspect as we drew to Marseille, Lille, Lens, and then lost to Rennes. So 15 games into the season, and it'll be no surprise to hear we aren't top of the table. Given how many points we've dropped, PSG are top, and hang on a minute, who put 50p in Rennes? Rennes are second and we're in third. We haven't been bad, but Rennes and PSG have been simply better. And it's a 3-horse race as we all gallop clear. And as we move through November and December, we found our groove, beating our old friends PSG on the way. That dented their confidence as they dropped points elsewhere, and the early season form of Rennes didn't last. By Christmas, we found ourselves back atop of the table. The Champions League has been something that's been a bit of a disappointment in recent seasons. Despite getting through the group stage, we've fallen short in the knockout rounds. Once again, we took it to Europe's best, beating plenty of big names on our way, topping the table of the league phase, only dropping points against Bayern Munich and our old friend, Christian Smarsh. At the turn of the year, things continued in positive fashion as we progressed in the French Cup, beating Marseille and Nice on our way to the final. We also continued our good form in the league, staying top of the table as we marched towards another league title. And with 3 games left in the league, we are 6 points clear of PSG, with them still to play. We could secure the title against them, which would be incredibly satisfying. And the Champions League, we were once again reunited with our old friend Christian Smarsh as we faced off against Bayern Munich in the round of 16. We were gifted a goal inside 2 minutes, and we never looked back, running out back-to-back 3-0 wins, taking us through 6-0 on aggregate. Next up was Nice, whose number we have. However, they made a pretty good scrap of it, with us taking both legs by just a single goal as we progress to the semi-final. And it was our toughest test yet as we face Spanish giants Real Madrid in the semi-final, and we succumbed to the pressure of the Bernabeu, losing the first leg 2-0. Before the second leg, we had Nantes in the league where we could all but secure the title, but our mind was clearly elsewhere on the enormous task ahead of us in the Champions League. Losing concentration as we drew 3-3 and opening the door ajar for PSG. The second leg of the Champions League semi-final, and we needed to start quickly, and we did just that. On the front foot straight from the off, we scored not 1 but 2 goals in the opening 6 minutes, levelling the tie in aggregate almost instantly, and we were in the ascendancy. We didn't let our concentration slip, as on the stroke of half-time, we made it 3 before grabbing a 4th at the start of the second half, taking the tie 4-2, and we progress to the final. Up next is back in the league and PSG, and we had the chance to secure the title with a win here, or let PSG right back into the title race. And right back in they barged as they won 1-0 with a scrappy goal in what was a tense and cagey encounter. On the final day, we must win to ensure the title, or as long as we match PSG's result, the title is ours. They have a difficult fixture against third place Rennes, whereas we have relegation threat in Strasbourg. And with PSG winning their game against Rennes, we knew we had to win. Fortunately, there was little drama about proceedings as we took charge of the match, running out 5-1 winners, champions again, albeit much closer than last season, but the story of this season is far from over, because up next is the French Cup final. And our old friends PSG, who look like they've got a score to settle, given our meteoric rise, and it was first blood to PSG as Kilic rivaled into the top corner after 21 minutes. PSG were ahead for less than a minute as a well-worked free kick off the training ground was played to Florian Renaud, Mr. Reliable, who scored the equaliser. And when we won a penalty in the second half, Mr. Reliable stepped up. And it was saved. Shockwaves rippled through the stadium, and that penalty save galvanised PSG. They found an extra gear, and with 13 minutes to go, Kenneth Taylor scored the winner. PSG have won the French Cup. We felt deflated, but we had to pick ourselves back up because we had a small matter of a Champions League final ahead of us. and Barcelona. With some familiar faces returning, who remembers the homesick Artesinho, who headed back to his native Brazil and played for Barcelona? And who could forget Mikel Langlois, our creative playmaker who left amidst a cheating scandal where he was the victim? Anyway, on to matters on the pitch, and we didn't seem at it at all. Barcelona took charge of the first half and turned their possession into a lead, with Vitor Roque scoring after 20 minutes. It didn't take long for a second as we gifted them the ball in the box from a poor back pass. 2-0, and we had a mountain to climb. We barely recovered from that before Barca were in again, Vázquez making it 3 on the half hour. We composed ourselves and steadied the ship, getting a goal back in the 65th minute from Sebastiano Ruta's effort. 3-1, 25 minutes left. Well, we won't make it easy for ourselves, would we? And fairy tales always have an element of drama before a happy ending, but this was no fairy tale. Vázquez found space on the left once more and finished expertly, putting any hopes of a comeback to bed. We did actually get a couple more goals late on to make the scoreline look closer than the game actually was. We lost 4-3 on the night, but in truth, we were well beaten by the better team. Heartbreak, and we leave this season feeling a little disappointed. And we're hearing news today that Jayhuahua's contract is up at Olympique Lyon at the end of next season. He has got 12 months left in his deal. He has just lost the Champions League final against Barcelona. And the rumours circulating are that he will be leaving at the end of his contract. He's going to have one final season to try and take home that Champions League. With rumours circulating in the press about my impending departure at the end of the season, the squad was informed this was our final season together. Our last chance for Champions League glory. So let's give it everything. With players in high demand from all corners of Europe, we had plenty of opportunity to let players go and replace, but they all believe in the project and we want to give things one final season with the guys that have been here along the way. So there were no transfers in, more importantly, no transfers out. So we're straight into the action on the pitch, retaining our Trophy de Champions as we toppled PSG 2-0. As we have done over the past few seasons, we hit the ground running, no more so than our star striker Florian Renaud. Mr. Reliable himself had found another gear this season, scoring for fun, but we weren't reliant on just his goals, as he had plenty of help from the usual supporting cast of superstars. But it was the Champions League that was our primary focus this season, as really it's only PSG who could challenge us for the league title, and we started our Champions League campaign in blistering fashion, destroying Sporting 7-0, then heading to Old Trafford and returning the victors as well. It hasn't been an issue in recent seasons qualifying from the league phase, so this should really be a formality. However, it's the knockouts that's caused us problems, so we've already got one eye on them. October, November and December was much of the same. Consistent performances, good results and goals galore. We had a minor slip up in mid-October with a defeat to Havre AC, which actually allowed PSG to leapfrog us at the top of the table. But this didn't last long as we got back to winning ways, and by the end of the month, we were 4 points clear, although PSG did have a game in hand. Whilst performances in the league in November were excellent, picking up 3 wins and only conceding 1 goal, there was a small wobble in the Champions League, as we lost 2-0, once again, to Benfica. At the end of November, we found ourselves 5 points clear of PSG, however they were actually unbeaten, having dropped points in too many draws. But at the start of December, it was a huge 6-pointer in the title race. Our lead could extend to 8 or be cut to 2 as we hosted our main championship rivals. And once again, we had PSG's number, running out 2-0 winners, with 2 of our most prolific players delivering the goods, Gaëtan Legrand and Florian Renaud. As we enter the new year, we remain 8 points clear and the league is very much in our hands at this point. So we move more than one eye over to the Champions League and the French Cup. The Cup was a formality as we navigated our way through the early rounds with ease. We didn't find the rest of the tournament overly difficult either, really, as we breezed past Nantes, US Avranches and RC Lens on the way to yet another final. Our 6th in a row, and Nice await at the end of the season. But rewinding time, we go back to the knockout stage of the Champions League and we got off to a terrible start as we journeyed to Stamford Bridge, Chelsea making home advantage count as they raced into a 2-0 lead. As the time dwindled away, the deficit was halved by Xavier Valle, giving us a fighting chance in the second leg. Chelsea arrived for the second leg with a 2-1 lead, but our home is a fortress and they really weren't ready, as we got on level terms very quickly. And just minutes later, we turned the tie on its head. We had confidence in our play and Chelsea just couldn't find any answers. We moved through the gears, scoring more goals, and any thought of a comeback for Chelsea were quickly eradicated as we ran out 6-0 winners. The Champions League quarterfinals are up next, and we start out with the home leg. After taking the lead towards the end of the first half, Real Madrid hit back just after half time. As the game wore on, our intensity and high pressing tactic was causing tiredness for Madrid. Gaps were appearing and mistakes were being made. Brazilian fullback Paulo made it 2-1, the ever reliable Florian Renard made it 3 from the spot, and we rounded off proceedings with a late goal from Santiago. We took a 4-1 lead into the second leg, and whilst that the Bernabeu provided a stiff test and Real Madrid ran out the victors on the night, it was only 1-0, so we progress 4-2 on aggregate. And we welcome our old friends at Barcelona for the semi-final. Who can forget the battering we received last season in the final? Even though it was 4-3, that scoreline, let's be real, flattered us, as it was all but over inside half an hour. But this time, it's time for revenge. And as the old saying goes, revenge is a dish best served goals, as we scored not 1, not 2, not 4, but 3 goals without a reply as we win the home leg 3-0. Despite a 3-0 lead, the second leg could go either way with a quick start from either team, and fortunately for us, we came out of the blocks flying, with Sangare giving us the lead on the night after 4 minutes, and Santiago doubling it at the midway point of the first half. By half time it was still 5-0 in aggregate, and we had 1 foot in the final. A consolation goal was cancelled out on the night as it ended 3-1, and the tie 6-1. Before the final though, there was a small matter of everything else as we continued to march on in the league, consistently picking up wins. We were scoring for fun and PSG were desperate for us to slip up with our focus on the Champions League, but it just simply never happened. In fact, it was PSG who dropped points as we won the league by 13 points and we had a goal difference of plus 103. Florian Renard scored 35 league goals, winning the Golden Boot, player of the season with 55 goals in all competitions. 1 down, 2 to go. And the cup final was up next. It was Nice. Cometh the hour, cometh the man, and the man who has scored for fun all season. Florian Renard breaking the deadlock just before half time. Nice were rocked, and we capitalised as they were desperate for the half-time whistle to blow. We pushed forward, and with one last attack of the first half, breaking with pace and pushing for a second, we got it. Santiago making it 2, and we head into half-time with one hand on the trophy. Nice came out with a bit more pep in their step and actually made a game of it, pulling one back, making it 2-1, and with the game teetering on a knife edge, Xavier Valle scored with 10 minutes left to make it 3 and secure the trophy. 2 down, 1 to go for the historic treble and to finish our story. Could it be the fairy tale ending, or could it be heartbreak? And it all comes down to this: the Champions League final, a decade-long story culminating in 90 minutes of football. Olympique Lyon versus AS Roma. And the first half was a complete dud, with no team pushing the pace, both sides afraid to take risks and make a mistake, and we came in at half-time with the scoreline 0-0. The second half, when we upped the tempo, pressing higher and finding renewed energy, and within 5 minutes it paid dividends as a misplaced back pass was bounced on by Florian Renard, who rounded the goalkeeper. 1-0. A historic treble was on, and it felt like it was destiny. Nothing could stand in our way. Or could it? A second yellow card for Johan Valle put us down to 10 with still over half an hour to play, and it got worse. Rossini's effort was deflected home, 1-1, and Roma were in the ascendancy. We regrouped and bided our time, waiting for our moment to pounce, but that moment just never came. Instead, it was Rossini again for Roma in the 85th minute, and it looked like this fairy tale was not going to have a happy ending at all. But we never give up. As we entered the final minutes of stoppage time, we won a free kick. It was whipped in towards Moses Ikiri, who got up ahead of his man, nodded it back across towards Matteo Zanzini, who headed home. 2-2, and the stadium erupts. It was pandemonium. Lyon have saved the game right at the death. Now for extra time. Extra time came and went with very little action. The closest either side came was a free kick that was pretty comfortably saved. And so it was the dreaded penalties. Cripplingly nerve-wracking for all involved, but wonderfully exciting for the neutrals. And up first is Lyon, and Mr. Reliable, Florian Renard himself. He confidently gave the keeper the eyes, sending him the wrong way. Berra steps up for Roma, and it's almost identical to Renard, sending the keeper the wrong way. 1-1. Santiago for Lyon goes the other side, but once again, the keeper goes the wrong way. The hero in normal time for Roma, Rossini, duly dispatched, as did Wolf, Zucchetti, Creakles and Benitez. 100% record so far, it's 4-4. Christopherson, Brawson and Vinicius both emphatically make it 5 out of 5 for both teams, and now it's sudden death, and the players who weren't confident to step up initially are going to be called upon. Up next for Lyon, it's left back Dennis Martin, who scores, and the pressure is now on Roma. and Mirko Malaguti. He steps up. He goes to the goalkeeper's right. Windegaard guesses correct, and he saved it. The unsung hero between the sticks gets his adulation today as he saves the decisive penalty in the shootout. Lyon are European champions.